Hello, Ms. Trainer.
Hi.
I enjoyed your class today.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions, comments about it. First thing I'm talking about the stuff that I thought that went really well.
Okay.
I thought you had great student engagement today, and I know that was one of your concerns in our pre-observation meeting.
Yes.
I just wanted to say that I thought about 90% of your students were fully engaged. There were some outlier students that I thought were not as engaged as others.
Okay.
There was a couple of students that were particularly cared about bouncing on the ball rather than listening to you talk.
Okay.
So I know you were concerned about that, and that was one of the stuff that we talked about, but I thought mostly great engagement. I think most of these students were fully engaged.
Okay.
The other, I thought it was a great, well-designed lesson. I thought your students knew what they were talking about, which is great for you. Whenever you brought something up, a new technique or a prior technique, they knew exactly what you were talking about. So there was nothing like new to them or anything like oh, we didn't talk about this. So I thought that was great.
Okay.
You did ask me to check to see if you were asking for variety of students, calling on them.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. I did notice you did call on a variety of students.
Oh, okay.
There were some students that had their hand raised from a lot of the time, but you didn't get to call them to the end.
Okay.
But they were volunteering every time, so just wanted to make you aware of that.
Okay.
There was a kid in a blue shirt, I'm not sure his name.
Okay.
He had his hand up every question, you didn't call him till the very end.
Okay.
A lot of you students blurt out answers.
Yes.
They're very, very active in class like that.
Yes.
In fact, you even had one student just walk up to the board a couple times.
Yes.
I believe
And
his
that
name,
is
Isaiah, I believe his
Isaiah.
name was.
That is a part of my classroom. Administrators in the past always usually struggle with that piece. It is a very open classroom.
Right.
If you need to stand up, you stand up. You saw the kids on ball chairs that need a ball chair, and then of course there are kids. I feel like that is a part of engagement in a lesson. If a child is so excited they have to come up and show me or point to me, or their language ability doesn't allow them to be able to explain it with the words that they're looking for as fast as they want to share what they're sharing.
Right.
So I do allow students at any time. I don't stop them or hinder them from
Great.
getting out of their seat or
And I'm sure that it takes time for the students to be comfortable with that process.
Yes.
As it is mid-November. I did notice that you did call on a student that did not have their hand raised, and he was not taken back by that,
Right.
and he was able to answer your question correctly. So I thought that's good. So the students are always on alert.
Right. I don't normally do that, but I saw that he was looking at me, and he's also a child that is more, I don't want to say shy, but he's more reserved in a classroom, and I knew that he was listening and following to the lesson, and I wanted to make sure that he got to participate, because I think I don't want just kids with their hands raised and the ones that are constantly blurting to overpower the ones that I do know the answer and that want to share but maybe aren't as outgoing as some of the others.
Do you have a cue for him? Like, if you make eye contact with him or he with you, does that kind of tell, like, oh, I know this?
Yeah, usually what I do is I make eye contact, but then I also smile. If he smiles back, then I know that he's with me.
Confident with
the
his
answer.
answers.
If he doesn't normally smile at me or he kind of looks away, then I know, oh, maybe he's not completely getting it, and I wouldn't call him. But that is not something that we have previously set up.
I did notice that. Good, great. Just reading through my notes here. Like I said, I thought the students were fully engaged. They were excited about writing.
Yes, that's one of my
which is tough to do with third graders. And it seems like their retention of previous lessons, like I said, that you have the keywords of transitions and verbs and colorful adjectives, and they knew exactly. It was just flawless for them. And it seems like also that you're incorporating previous lessons into your new lessons, so you're bringing it back, stuff like that.
So we've had a lesson on each one of those, and we've actually incorporated each one of those techniques into our writing already. The newest addition was similes. So we've learned about similes and isolation, but we have not incorporated that into our writing yet. So that was that 8th piece that we were adding in.
Okay.
Which is why they needed the cueing for it.
Yes.
I know it came up last, and I was surprised because I thought it was actually going to come first. So it was shocking when they were so upset about the spelling errors, like the things that really kind of jumped out, and then I was surprised to see that no one said similes, which I thought was going to be the first thing, because it was the last writing lessons that we had been working on. So it just shows you that that lesson in isolation wasn't as effective as it could have been, but this was the second lesson really for similes.
Yeah, I did notice you brought up the new technique, similes, but then you went right on to something else before talking about similes again.
Yeah.
So I think you talked about correcting spelling, and then you went back to similes.
Yeah.
So you mentioned it, but then you went to something else.
Yes, because I was waiting to see if that was going to jog their memories. It's like
Right,
this
and then you
thing,
talked about the like
planting
and
a
as.
seed, or and then I was like, how do I do that again?
Right.
Then I
'Cause
realized
you
that
went,
they were.
you said I'm
struggling.
going to introduce the new technique, similes, and then you started going back to rewriting. You started back with spelling again.
Yes.
So I was kind of surprised, like, okay, you mentioned similes, but then you didn't go further with it until
Yeah.
a couple
I
minutes
felt
later.
that they needed that wait time because they weren't. Not everyone was jumping on it, because you can see
Mhm.
everyone can jump on a compound sentence.
Right.
Everyone can jump on complex. They knew adjectives.
Colorful,
But
right.
that piece of like that simile piece, so I introduced it, and then I realized they weren't as on top of it, and that wait time of 2 or 3 minutes before we get back to it again on our list, and then they were like, oh, and then it.
Right.
I didn't want to reteach it. I wanted to see what they were going to jog from their memory.
Okay, great. I thought there was a great use of displayed artifacts in your room. Your no excuse words.
Yeah.
You kept on pointing out to that, and you also mentioned to them that they have their own copy.
Yes, I was going
believe,
to say they have
on
their
the- on the-
copy
on
on their desk.
on their desk, and you kept on referring to the writing folders, so you're
Yes.
using the tools in the classroom that they're very aware with. That was great. And you also mentioned, well, back to that, using the writing folders and the no excuse word displays. I think that ties in with your the district goal of executive functioning, which is great. I know that's what some of the superintendents been talking about
Yes.
using it. So I'm glad you're using that. You also did mention in your pre-observation meeting that you thought there needs improvement of your students with spelling,
Yes.
and I could highly see that that is a great concern with them, whether you pushed it on them or not, but they were very concerned with their spelling, which is great. I think they were pretty active in spelling the correct words.
Yes.
And you had that discussion about pumpkins, which was not a sight word for them,
Right.
but you told them that this one you can sound out.
Right, it should have been closer, it
Right.
should have been spelled closer to the correct spelling, but that's what I'm seeing in their writing. So when I mirrored up that paragraph that I actually wrote myself but made purposeful errors because it's what I'm seeing in their work, it was nice for me, even on that revising and editing side, for me to see they can recognize when things are misspelled. So now I know when they're looking at their own writing, they should be catching those mistakes.
Right. Great. So those were some of the excellent points, and I have very few constructive criticism for you,
Okay,
but I think it's good to hear.
yes,
We already touched base about this, but the blurting out of answers, you kind of talked about that. I said that's normal behavior for you, as long as it works for your class, and
yes,
there's no complaints from surrounding classrooms about noise level. I have no problem with that, as long as you're comfortable with that.
you're nicer than my current principal.
Okay. Couple things. If you could maybe call on those students not engaged in the lesson a little bit more often, or more than once.
Without their hand raised, or with?
You can be the judge of that.
Okay.
You don't want to single anybody out or set them up to fail or embarrass them at all. But if you can try to, but again, these are just minimal things.
Okay.
The timing between questions. If you could give kids a little bit more time for those who don't have their hands up, give them time to process. Everyone puts their hand up and you immediately call, but that other student's still thinking. You don't have to call on that student, but it maybe get that student time to process.